Hello again, welcome back. I'm Juan here from Bona Studio, and today it's another tutorial day. So what are we going to see today? Let's check this video we have here. We have some liquid in the floor, and then boom, it morphs into a specific shape, and then boom, it morphs again. So how would it do this? This is pretty simple. This is not MantaFlow, this is not Beam, and this is not the new Flip Fluid Simulator add-on that, by the way, we are going to be reviewing it soon in this channel. But these are plain Blender particles with its fluid physics. So let's see how to reproduce this effect. For this tutorial, we are going to use the fracture modifier branch. To get this branch, you just have to build Blender yourself by following our tutorial on how to build Blender. Just shift from MantaFlow branch to the fracture modifier branch. But if you don't want to build Blender yourself, you can go here to graphical.org, and here you can download the latest build that Scorpion 81 did. So you download this and you will get everything we have here. Great, let's go to it. So, how can we do morph with particles in Blender? There are tons of tutorials on how to do this using the Keyed physics, and it's not what we are going to see today, but just for the sake of knowledge, I'm going to show what is it. Using the Keyed physics, we need a third object that has nothing to do with our original particles, that creates some particles. That's it. After that, we need an object with a particle system that can be moving or can be static, whatever we want, and a second particle system with the same amount of particles, okay, and can be moving or static, no matter what happens here. So if we saw this particle system, we see that we have these particles that belong to this object forming this sphere, and if we play the animation, we saw these particles morphing into this other object. What's the problem here? We don't have any control over what particles do we want to be morphed in this object and when those particles are going to enter in the effect of the object. We don't have control over the simulation. Plus, in this case, the Keyed particles don't have any kind of cache. We cannot cache these particles. So for me, this is a problem because if I want to send this to a render farm, I prefer to rely into something cast instead of something that is being calculated in real time. So this is the old method. Let's check how can we do the morph with the new method. Let's create a plane that is going to be our floor. Let's create an object, a sphere is okay. It's going to be our particle source. Okay, our particles are going to be born here. Now let's create a target object that we can use, for example, some text. Rotate X 90 degrees and let's edit the text. I think we can use, for example, Blender. Okay, Blender. No, Blender no. Yeah, Blender. Okay, and let's give this object some extrusion, and let's do it bigger. 2 it's okay, and we are going to leave the object here. On the floor, it's okay. Okay, a bit more extrusion. 2 it's okay. Great, we have 2 objects, and now we need the third object. So we are going to here, and we are going, in this case, we are going to use Suzanne. Here we have the latest morph target. So we go here and we create a particle system. In this case, we are going to use just one particle system. We don't need to reproduce many particle systems. No. Just one particle system. All the particles are going to be born in the first frame, and we want, for example, 10,000 particles. So if we press play, we have the particles falling. Okay, that's cool. Now let's save this scene. Basic, for example. Okay. And we're going to make the floor to collide with the particles. So collision, quite a bit of damping. I like damping. Yeah, quite a bit of damping, a bit of randomness, and the same situation here. For example, that's okay. You can play with the values. And if we press play, okay, the particles are falling into the floor. Now let's go to configure the particles. We may want to give this to the particles as a grid instead of as jittered or random, but well, in this case I don't care too much, so this is okay. And I'm giving it from faces because the real point where I want the particles is when they are in the floor already. Let's increase the lifetime of the particles. Okay. Now we are going to remove the initial velocity, and we are going to configure the physics as fluid, because to achieve this cool effect of particles forming the object, etc., we need to use the fluid physics, the SPH particles. So that's okay. If we press play, everything explodes because the size of the particle. So let's try 0.2. That's better. And then we have this liquid here. Okay, like a liquid. Let's go to 300 frames. So we have plenty of room to play the simulation. Okay, we have the liquid here, and that's cool. Great. Now we want the particles to form the first object, and we are going to encounter several problems, and we have several fixes for those problems. So let's start. How can we make the particles to morph into the object? Using force fields, of course. First of all, let's give some drag here and some damp, because this way we can avoid the particles going crazy. And in the integration, we are going to use the Berlet solver, because it's more stable and gives better results for fluids. And for subframes, it's a great setting. Okay, we have here something more under control. Great. Now, if we go here, force field settings, we are going to enable one force field here, the charge force field. And if you know a bit of physics, you know that opposite charges attract each other. So in this case, we are going to give this a -10 as a force, and that's okay. That's it. And nothing changes. You have the same exact simulation. But if we go here to the world, to Blender, let's give it. If we go to Blender and then we go here, we enable force field and we enable the force as charge and strength of exactly the same as the particles, but in the opposite direction. So 10 positive. We are going to give the force field a bit of flow because it gives a bit more natural movement. And if we press play, check this. Okay, everything is going to one point, but we don't want that because we have to change the shape from point to surface. And now, check this. The particles are being attracted by the words, but everything is on the floor. Why? Because we have gravity. And can we control gravity in Blender? No. No at first sight. But if we go here, we can disable gravity. And then the particles are a bit crazy, but form the fluid, the word. We need more particles, I think. Yeah, we need more particles. More than more particles, we need to increase this value here, the interaction distance. So with the same particles, we can handle a lot more of space. That's okay. Okay, we are going to decrease the floor friction, 0.4 for example. But the particles are going crazy. How can we avoid that? That's better. How can we avoid the particles going crazy? Pretty simple. We have the force here, but we have a lot of speed in the particles. If we want the particles to be under control, we have to damp or to drag its movement, their movement. So for this, we are going to create a mesh box. We are going to edit that box. So we cover the full world. Scale X. And that's okay. We're going to configure the box as bones so we can see the world. And in this box, we are going to enable one force field that is drag. But right now, this is going to drag the full scene. Okay. So it's pretty big, but we can see how the particles are slowly getting into the world. Let's reduce the words just for the sake of the tutorial. And now we can decrease the interaction distance. A bit more could be cool, so 1.4 for example, and we can decrease also the drag. Let's check. Okay, here we have the B, and that's okay, but this is a bit out of control yet, because what I really want is to have the fluid lying on the floor, and at some point I want this fluid to morph the world. So for that we have to control gravity, because I want gravity so the liquid falls into the floor. How can we do that? As I said, we cannot use gravity from the Blender scene, so we are going to disable it. But we can create gravity, and some people think that we don't have any gravity force field, but in fact we have. Let's go to create another geometry. This geometry is just a holder for the force field, nothing important. We can put it here. Its shape, it's not important at all, and its position either. And we know we are going to use, instead of force, we are going to use a wind. Because what is gravity in a 3D Gravity is just an uniform force with a specific direction. That's it. So in this case, we can use a wind. The point it's okay because we don't have limits in this case. So, and the strength is going to be minus 9.8. That maybe it's a bit too low, but we'll see. If we press play, well, you can see how the particles are going to the floor. But we don't want the force field from the letter to be enabled from the beginning. So we can do two things. We can play with the strength, or we can play with the minimum and maximum. In this case, we are going to use a maximum 0, and you will see how the fluid falls into the floor. But it's too low, it's too slow. So we are going to increase the gravity. Let's multiply it by 10. Okay, it's better. And we have the particles being affected by the drag yet, and we don't want these too. So in this case, maximum is 0, and now we have all particles falling. We can explore this. Let's try this. Still too slow. Maybe we can duplicate the force. Just duplicate it. Minus 24. Feels more natural to me. It's not physically correct, but it looks great. So here we have it. And now we want, for example, at frame 60, we want the fluid forming the shape. So we just have to go here and to increase the maximum value, to animate the maximum value. So in this case, frame 60, I will animate this. I'm going to frame 80, and I will increase this. You can see the sphere. And I will animate this. Check what happens. Let's select, let's configure the particle visibility to show us the velocity. Display, 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 velocity, that's better. Great, we have the particles forming the letter, but yet we have the gravity in action. So how can we reduce this action? We can go here, and just like with the other effects of force fields, we can use the maximum, but we can use in this case the tube configuration, because this way we have a height and a width. No, sorry, of course not, the maximum here, height and width. So if I don't want the particles to be affected by the gravity when they go to the letter, I just have to limit the gravity to this place, and that's it. The particles will be unaffected by the gravity. We can increase this a bit more, and we can increase this so it covers the full sphere. We press play. Some particles are escaping our gravity, so we may want to increase the distance just for time being. We are going to animate it, just like we animated the other force field. We are going to reduce this here, or here, it's okay. Okay, and that's it. If we press play, well, we don't want particles to be unaffected until we want them to form the shape. That's it. The particles are falling, and now we have the particles morphing into the shape. But they are a bit crazy right now. They need a lot of time to settle down. So how can we do this? Okay, we can use the drag, but instead of using the maximum, that by the way we are going to use, but just to avoid the drag affecting the particles falling here, we are going to use the surface. I think this may work. No, this doesn't work. We're going to use the tube and the maximum here. Maximum and maximum. Okay, it's important that the force field origin takes place in the origin of the geometric object. So in this case, we need to change this origin to geometry, and that's it. We have the force field from the center. So now we want to limit this and to limit this, and that's okay too. So if we press play now, now the drag is affecting, and we need less time to the particles be settled down. Okay, here we have our particles. Great, now we have a letter, but we have a problem. The letter is too thick, and we need the particles to be thinner, the letter to be thinner. So how can we achieve this? Easy enough. We are going to duplicate the letter, but in this case I'm going to move the letter to this layer, but I want to see this, and in this case I'm going to enable the letter as wire, and I'm going to remove the force field from this object. Okay, now I have a visual reference of the thickness I want, and I have my actual geometric object. We have different options to achieve this, but in this case I'm going to use the no, not the display, sorry, the offset modification in the word. So if I do this, I'm going to achieve a thinner result from the particles. Okay, here we have our liquid, and then it's being attracted, and it's near our target, but we need it to be a bit thinner, and we may need to decrease the interaction distance too. Set on 1.4. let's try to 1. Let's start with 1. And here we have maybe a bit more, 1.2 for example. We have a liquid falling, And if you see closely the simulation, we have a problem. Okay, this is near where we want. We have a problem here. That is when the liquid is being attracted, we have an effect like a banding. How can we avoid this banding? We go to our object, to the force field, and we are going to use the power. The power is a fall-off from the center of the force field to the outer limit of the force field. So in this case, we are going to use power of 2, and you will see that you will see the force field affecting less the simulation. Okay? It's slower and it's more gradual. It's like it's sucking the liquid. But we don't want that. We want the effect to be hard, to be fast. So for that, we can do two things. First of all, we are going to use a minimum where the effect is going to be full. And we are going to reduce this to 0.5. Let's check. This is a matter of trial and error in your scene. So just play with the values. We still have this. No, we don't want this. Let's check with 1.3. 1.3. It's better, but still too slow. So to avoid that, we can go to 1.5 and we can exaggerate the maximum value. So in this case, instead of 6, we are going to use 20. Okay. And we can reduce this to 1.2 again. Let's try disable the minimum. That's better. Of course, if we want the force to be bigger, we just need to increase this. So instead of 10, that is an equivalent force, we are going to attract the particles with a lot more force. So we can try 20, for example. Here we have. And we can increase this to 2. Let's check what happens here. And 1.6. And that's it. Now let's go to morph the particles into a different object. So we have the particles here. If you see closely, the red color indicates that the speed of the particles is pretty high. So we want the particles to settle down before we do the following morph. How can we achieve that? We have our drag, we can animate our drag, but the drag has a maximum value of 2, and we don't need to animate the drag. We are going to animate a setting of the particles. So in this case, we go here, and from this moment, I want the particles to start settling down. So I can animate the damp, not the drag, but the damp. So I'm going to animate the damp. We go to 150 and 0.1, for example. And let's check what's the result. And now the particles start settling down. But we want to be more radical, so we can try with 0.3. These values are pretty strange, pretty hard. This is the moment we want to damp. And here we have, the particles are slow. And if we want a total stop of the particles, we may go here, and we can animate this to 1, and we're going to see the particles being stopped. Here's the attraction, now the damp, and now the full stop. And that's it. We can increase also the drag, so we make sure that the particles are completely stopped. But now we want the particles to morph into Suzanne. So for that, we have to do a pair of things, but it's the same that we did up to now. For example, I want the particles to be Suzanne, start being Suzanne at 180. So I'm going to animate the dump, and in the very next frame, I'm going to go back to my original value. Now I want to animate the force field, this force field, and for this force field, I want to animate the strength or the maximum. For example, I can animate the maximum, and in the very next frame, I want a maximum of 0. So the force field is not attracting the particles anymore. And also this happens with the drag. I may leave the drag for the time being, but I think we're going to disable it later. If we press play now, we have the forming shape. Now they are frozen, and now they are free, and the gravity is not affecting them, so we have a blob of liquid. Now we can go to Suzanne, we can add another force field, another charge. In this case, we set in the 180, and we want minus 20, for example. No, sorry, 20, for example. Flow 3. I like the value of 3 for flow. A maximum value, because we don't want this to affect the particles until we want the effect. We can animate this here, and in this frame, we want the particles to be fully attracted by Suzanne. So let's go to 20. Again, we can use a power of 2, and we can use a strength of 30. And let's try. In this case, we can see like a barrier here, and this barrier is happening because the drag. So we may enable a bit of power here. We may play a bit more with the values to avoid this barrier. We have the particles, and now we have the particles being morphed into Suzanne without control. How can we control these particles? We already know that. We can duplicate this, and we are going to put this around Suzanne, and we are going to use a sphere in this case. So no power, but this is it. Okay. And one important thing is that I don't want all the particles to be morphing into Suzanne at once. So for this, we can play with the maximum value, and instead of going 20, we can go slowly. For example, if I go until here, until okay, I can go to 5 or to 5 and animate it. And then we have first morph, everything is frozen, and we have it's too low, it's too small. So 8, for example. Try. Now the particle is frozen, and now it's too big. For example, here 5.6. Okay, 5.6. But the thing is that animating the maximum value or this fall-off, you can achieve the morphing at the pace that you want. That's it. We have some particles being affected, and we can decrease the force, so we don't have the banding. We could increase the power too. We can play with the parameters to avoid the banding. More. Let's increase this to 5 or to 8. No, sorry, 10, 8. Let's see if this has any effect in the banding. We can use the minimum also, so the fall off happens between this place and this place, and we can increase the fall off 6 and this is 3 again, and let's resimulate. One cool thing about all this is that the simulation in Blender is pretty fast. The SPH fluid simulation is pretty fast. Of course, if you need millions and millions, here we have the fall off and here we have the attraction. But just part of the particles. If we go to Suzanne and configure these two bones, we have everything forming the sphere because we need to change the shape from point to surface, of course. Frozen liquid, and now we have part of Suzanne. And in this case, because the strength is bigger, we can reduce the maximum to 5 and probably 5 or 5.2, and we will be attracting everything. So let's try 5, and basically that's it. Playing with force fields, you can morph the particles in whatever you want, and if you want a more steady fluid or more steady aspect, you can play with the density of the viscosity of the fluid, and you can play with the different settings the fluid has. In this case, for example, we are affecting part of the fluid but not the other part, so we divided the fluid in two shapes. Now, if we want to see this in geometry, we are going to hide all the geometry. To hide the geometry, we can go here. We don't want to hide the object, so in this case, we are going to use mask. For this, we are going to move this to another layer. We just want this layer. For this, we can just hide them, and that's it. And now we are going to use the new remesh option. That's why that's the reason, because we are using the fracture modifier branch, because we have the new metable mode particles. Now we have this 0.05, for example, 0.05. Now we have our liquid. It's better to bake the simulation before. That's important and safe, just in case. So let's bake the simulation. It's pretty fast. That's it. We can go here and we can enable the remesh. The remesh is going to be more or less fast. So we have our fluid. Now the fluid is, because everything was hidden, right? So there is another trick. Let's move this back to the layer. In this case, we don't want to see the surface, so we can use a mask again. No, we don't. We can't use a mask because this is a letter. So for this case, I'm going to use a build and put the start frame to 1000, and that's it. Because it's after the surface modifier. So okay, that's it. Sorry, let's rebake. I'm going to fast forward the baking of the particle. We'll bake, and that's it. We have our particles, and now we can go here, enable the remesh, and now we have our fluid. But if we want the fluid to have a more fluidy aspect, we can use some tricks. So we can apply a smooth with value of 1 and value of 8, and if we want even a bit more of fluid aspect, we can use a displace with a value of minus 0.01, for example, minus 0.05 or 0.4, and this way we have a bit more aspect, a bit more fluid aspect. So for 0.2, whatever you want. So we have here our B, now it's frozen, and now it's being deformed and being attracted to form part of Suzanne. Of course, you will need more particles to create a bigger Suzanne, or you can animate the interaction distance of the particles. But if you want more fluid detail, you have to reduce the interaction distance and increase the particle amount, and reduce also the particle size. And this way you will achieve more details in your simulation. So that's it. I hope you liked the video, you liked this technique. I think it's pretty cool. If you liked it, please press the like button. If you are new, subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this in Spanish and English. And remember to press the little bell icon that is besides the subscribe button. And that's it for today. See you in the next video. Bye!